however you want to codify it. If you don't have that and you can't verbalize it, and people in your company that are top performers can't verbalize it, that'd be the number one thing I'd say you need to do. Because again, people leave situations, they typically don't leave the task that they get hired for. They leave people and managers and bad cultures to go find a better place to work.
Right.
So if you don't have that in your business, getting that first, getting that established, who are we? Why are we here? What do we do? What do we care about the most? Getting that done. And then
welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today with Mitsuoka Company interview series. So today we are going to be interviewing Stephen Winterrode, who is the Director of Business Development at Mitsuoka Company. Stephen is going to share with us his experience as a franchise owner and as a franchise expert consultant and how he uses his knowledge as a recruiter. Hi, Stephen. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you giving us the time. So I thought we'd just start by you telling us a little bit about your franchise advisor business and your history with owning your own franchise.
okay. Well, I always wonder where I start. You always start back at the very beginning. So really how it trickled for me or into my idea was when I was in grad school, 1997, 98, my dad got forced to take early retirement. And what that did for me is I saw that he didn't control that conversation or have that ability to say, no, I don't want to leave. He was a geophysicist and he loved what he did. He never took a management position or wanted to go further on because he always wanted to do the hands-on stuff. And what he found was they could go hire someone for $50,000, $55,000 compared to his six-figure salary. So he didn't have control of that. So whenever I was in grad school, I was looking at the banking and those types of things. And so then I flipped and said, I got to go find somewhere where equity is an opportunity. So I got into financial services with a smaller company that was able to do an equity position with that as well. And so that was really good. I mean, it made my MBA program people not very happy because I took a low salary and they're all about high salaries for their programs and stuff like that. But so that led me to Dallas. And then we opened up an office in New York City in February of 2001. So I had a little bit of experience with small firm on Wall Street, did some hedge fund and bank trust department interactions. And then after 9/11, we had to close the office. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I had to take a look around and see what I wanted to do at that moment. I say I took a step back, but I became a pharmaceutical rep and I got a job. But what it showed me outside sales. It showed me a different world that I didn't know anything about. And it taught me some other skills that I have now as far as cold calling, creating relationships, building those bridges with individuals. And so I did that, but I never lost the desire to want to own your own thing. And I kept looking at franchise opportunities, would get online, search for those. And I think a lot of people think about is the only franchises that are out there are McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts in the Northeast, or food. And there's this whole world of service-based franchises that a lot of people don't know about. And fortunately, I found CertaPro Painting as the franchise opportunity. And we were tired of the weather in New York and tired of the rough lifestyle. So we packed up and we did a Beverly Hillbillies move to Santa Monica, California in 2008 and started a CertaPro Painting franchise fresh there at that time.
Wow.
That's how I got into franchising, and how I became an owner of a franchise at that time.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And that's quite a change from New York to to Los Angeles to the beach. Do you regret that move?
No, I don't. I mean, I loved New York at the time. I think we experienced New York at a really great time. No kids. Even though we had to go through 9/11, right after 9/11, it was super safe and everybody was kind of gelling together and on board with each other. So we had a great time. But then I also really enjoyed being able to bike my 9-month-old down to the beach and experience that. So we did that for 8 years, 2008, 2016. I was an owner operator. I had just me and sales and painters. We did residential, commercial, as small as a bedroom to as big as a 13-story high-rise in Marina Del Rey project. So that was a great experience. After I sold, I got into recruiting for franchisors and some franchisees. And that's really where I ended up meeting Takuya and Anna, and got down this road of recruiting specifically for franchise owners that we're doing now.
Right. So actually, like, obviously with all this experience, I was actually going to ask you, so how do you incorporate all of this knowledge that you've learned from your experience into recruiting? Because I'm sure you've got, like, you learned a lot going from everything that you've done.
Mm-hmm. The biggest thing that we talked about in recruiting in when we launched Mitsuoka Company is not recreating experiences that I had and that others have had when using recruiters in smaller businesses. So I had a recruiter referred to me by corporate, and my experience was basically more work than it would have been if I just would have done it on my own.
Right.
So a lot of recruiters will just look at resumes. They'll like scrub it lightly to see if the person's alive and willing to have a conversation with the client. Yeah, and they feel like they're helping, that they're doing their job as a recruiter by giving them people for them to interview.
Right.
So our differentiator, what we talked about doing, is not just to do resume scrubs and create conversations for an owner with as many candidates as they could and let them find someone that they like. We're going to headhunt for people,
right,
direct message them, find the people that would be interested in the opportunity, and then take them through a full interview process. Then get the individuals that pass that process in front of the owner.
Yeah. So what would you say is the most important quality in hiring somebody? What makes you go, okay, I'm going to pick this person versus that person? Or, you know, what is it that you look for in an employee?
The number one thing we focus on is a values fit for that company, especially when you're talking for a smaller owner operator. Maybe it's a husband-wife team. They've got maybe 4 or 5 employees. It can be very detrimental to bring in someone that's not a culture fit, or is not, because it's a small family a lot of times. And you need to have that focus of someone coming in and it's going to be a fit. So we focus on that 100% all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's basically like finding the right fit for the right business. And you guys obviously have to really understand the business itself in order to make that puzzle. I like to think of it kind of like a puzzle.
Yeah.
So going back to the franchise, I'm really curious about this actually. What is basically like the biggest mistake that you have learned from owning a franchise or from experiencing anything to do with the franchise? And what advice do you have to anyone who has a franchise and what not to do, basically?
Yeah. If I look back on when I think about that, it is not hiring those key people in the business and getting over that fear of adding people to the company. And because what happens is, especially in a service-based business, if you're out doing all the sales, doing all the proposals, managing either if it's subcontractors or employees, and managing all the financials and the marketing and doing all that stuff, you'll burn out. You just burn out over time.
Right. Yeah.
And it ends up not being the thing that you wanted ultimately, which was this business. And some people say, so you bought a job, right? And if that's a kind of a mistake, I look back on it, is not trusting myself or getting past that fear of adding that key employee.
Right.
Yeah. So
Would you say also like
be,
your gut feeling on hiring people is really important too? Or, I mean, obviously that comes a little bit with experience, but I don't know. I'm just curious about that. Do you find that that's something that you do, or?
I think what I'd say to that is more along the lines of, you do have to kind of take a leap of faith with people, right?
Right.
Jerry Vaynerchuk talks about it. He's like, trust implicitly. Then, if someone breaks that trust, then you break away from it. Not managing from a position of fear. Is this person going to screw me over, or ruin my business? But trusting that's that. So.
And people make mistakes, but I think it's also like you can kind of tell when somebody's like doing a mistake after a mistake and just not showing up or being late or something, and not showing up to the meetings or whatever, as opposed to somebody who really genuinely had something going on and they're like, I'm so sorry, but they make up for it, or I don't know. Okay. So I've been asking everybody this question because I'm really curious to hear your opinion about it, but what do you think is the greatest?
Yeah, what I was trying
Sorry, we got to.
Oh, a little delay here. Apologize.
Yeah, we just got to die. Finish your thought.
Okay, was that sometimes as an owner, when you're doing the interviewing by yourself, you think you can try to find the you got to wait till you find the perfect person, right? And you're just never going to find someone all the time who's going to check every boxes, right? You got to be willing to give on a certain things, but you got to be willing to be hard and fast on a few things, right? And to make sure that someone is going to deliver on those, and one being culture fit,
right?
Those types of things.
So would you say that comes down to like knowing what your priority is and then working your way down from there?
Yeah, if you haven't codified like your values, your vision, fortunately, most franchisors have a vision and values that they bring franchisees in, and you usually assimilate to that. But if you're not living that and you're not putting that out there, the reason you have all those is one, so they can expunge individuals that don't match your core values and stuff.
Right.
And if you're just not really living them and putting them out there, they're not going to help you get rid of individuals who on their own who won't match up.
Right.
Yeah.
So this actually leads into my next question. So as I said, I was kind of asking everybody this because I'm really curious, especially as a franchise owner. What do you think is the greatest benefit of hiring a recruiting company versus hiring yourself?
Well, it depends on what recruiting company you hire. But I think the benefit there, because you can just hire some that'll give you more work.
Right.
But okay. I think the biggest thing, if you hire the right recruiting company, they're going to help save time and money. They should do both. They should help you save time and money. Time is pretty easy to figure out, right? I mean, you're not going to be doing the phone interviews. You're not going to be missing the no-shows. In our process, what we do, when we're doing all the phone interviews, we're making individuals do a video application. We're doing behavioral interview. They're doing an assessment before they ever get introduced to the owner. So we're doing a lot of steps, and an owner, if they're trying to find someone, should be doing those steps as well, or someone in their business doing all those steps to find a good candidate. So we're taking all that off their plate. So it should be saving them time in that regard. And then also they're only interviewing people that have gone through all that process that we would potentially hire for our own service-based businesses. A good recruiter is only going to get you in front of people that you should potentially hire. as long as you guys get connected. As far as saving money, right now, if a person's going out on their own and they're just posting and hoping, and they're doing marketing dollars trying to spend on Indeed, and let's say they're trying to go find a sales associate. Well, that's a term that a lot of companies could be going after, or general manager. And if you're saying a major metro like Atlanta or Los Angeles, and you're just putting $2,000 a month into that, and you got a competitor company like a SpaceX or an Amazon or something like that,
Right.
that can put 10 grand a month behind it.
Yeah.
Your $2,000 a month is just getting pushed down, and you're turning wheels. Well, a good recruiting company, if you get the right one, should help save you time and money, not just time.
Right.
And so some people sit there and say, well, how does it save me money? Because I'm paying the head fee or whatnot. A bad hire, the cost of a bad hire is not just the base salary or however much time and effort you spent in training that person. It could be lost opportunity if it's a salesperson, where they've gone out and done some estimates and maybe they have a low close rate because they're not a good salesperson. So bad customer reviews, all sorts of things that can come into play. So we actually did a white paper that shows the cost of a bad sales hire can be in the neighborhood of $400,000 if you add in all the stuff.
Wow.
Like lost opportunity, depending on how long you keep them. You keep someone for a year and they don't close very well, and they run a bunch of leads and you do a bunch of marketing, it could be a big number. So you should be able to have saved that. Now, as far as just time, right now to go out and find somebody to bring into a company, you can't just post and hope someone's going to apply these days. You got to spend a lot of time of direct messaging individuals, putting a job in front of them, scrubbing resumes and messaging them on the different platforms, whether that's Indeed or LinkedIn or anywhere else you can go find them.
Yeah, and that also gets quite expensive too, right? Because you have to make the post stand out and compare to the competition and everything else. So from what I've researched, it's like you end up it ends up costing you more, because then you have add-ons and like advertising, and if you want your post to be at the top of the list, so all that kind of stuff. So it ends up actually adding up quite a bit.
Yeah, and if you're posting for like a general manager, let's say in a metro area, or another position that a large corporation might be going after, right?
Yeah.
And their budget, they're willing to spend $20,000 a month on Indeed. If they
get
are
up to that much, really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I mean, they're willing to spend to get it, to make sure it's top of the list, top of the search, getting in front of people. If you don't have that same budget, it's kind of like the old days of the internet when you're doing ad buys and word buys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're getting pushed down further and further in the list.
Would you even say that if they were going to spend that amount of money, then they obviously would have to pay somebody on top of that to basically run, put the ad up, make sure that they're responding to everything. Like, so you still have a cost on top of a cost with that.
Yeah. If you don't have someone dedicated to taking in all the applicants and treating them like a sales lead, basically, because that's really how, in our opinion, you need to treat candidates as much as you would treat a lead for, let's say, if you have a home services business, someone says, I want you to come out and give me an estimate. You're treating that person with a high sense of urgency. You need to do the same thing with candidates as well. Otherwise, they'll move on.
Right. And the other thing that I find that obviously recruiters, I mean, this is something that you do 24 hours a day. This is what you literally do. So I'm assuming you would have like different tools, different methods. You would have proven and tested methods to know how to basically read people, know how to like find people, all that sort of stuff, which obviously somebody who hires themselves do not have, and puts them in a sense in a disadvantage, because if you don't know how to read people, I mean, they might look great on paper, and maybe they might say the right thing, but then you might be skipping like certain interview processes that really tell and put them in a certain category.
Especially if you're under pressure and you're a 2 to 3 person business in the home services space, and you've waited to try to find that next person too late, and now you're under pressure to hire that person. And sometimes you just are like, all right, they seem to check enough boxes, let's hire them. As opposed to really putting a system like you're talking about, and steps and methodical process in it that we do, which is like you said, not everybody comes with that. Even if you're in a franchise system, which we work with a lot, they don't always have that system in place for you.
Actually, it just comes into my next question, which is about behavioral interviewing, which I know that Mitsuoka Company uses. But can you tell me a little bit about it, and like, what is your opinion on it, and how effective is it?
Well, the reason why we want to look at that is because we want to look at past performance to predict future results, and everybody's trying to find that person who's going to add something to their company. And if a person can't verbalize how they've done in the past and how they're going to impact this next position that they're looking to take on, then it's just one of the best ways to find out people's personalities and tenacity and their willingness to hit a goal and their attention to detail. It's just all the things that people are looking for when they want to bring on a top talent to their business, that we found to be the best way of doing it.
Right. And I guess like goal setting comes with the behavioral interviewing, right? Because it's like, if a person can set their goals, but if I don't have that drive to achieve it, then it's likely even in the business that they, mean well at the beginning, but then they're just going to burn out or something, or that's something that they did in the past. And of course, behavior, like personality, like you said, fitting in with the company culture. That's actually something that, from what I've researched, a lot of people don't stick around for very long in companies, because ultimately they just do not fit in with the company culture. So then they just end up moving on, which is kind of like why a lot of companies cannot keep staff, and therefore they have to like keep hiring, which of course adds on more costs and everything else. Yeah.
There's a saying that people don't leave jobs, they leave people, they leave managers. Right. They leave managers, they leave environments. And that could be a good and a bad thing. So if you know your culture and you have an established quality culture, and it's keeping the quality people around, and you do make a hire on your own, and that culture expunges a bad hire, that's okay. But if you have a bad culture and you're having a lot of turnover and you don't really pay attention to it, you're gonna struggle to find quality people to want to stay around with your company.
Right.
And so another benefit of using a recruiter is we also guarantee the hires. And so we end up replacing them if they were someone that, potentially duped us all, or, we thought was going to be a good fit, or you come to find out you need to let them go just because they aren't delivering on what everyone thought they were going to in the interview. We end up replacing them one time at no additional charge. So if you don't use a recruiter and you've invested all that money on your own, you end up firing the person. Well, now you got to do it again.
Yeah.
So,
and also, you guys obviously have like a list of people that you have interviewed previously that they might already be a good fit. So the time for you probably to hire might not be as long, obviously, depending on the job, the position, and all that sort of stuff. So
that can happen from time to time. But one of the things that we've differentiated on as far as a recruiting company is, once we go into contract with a client, that position becomes a unique position that we assign a dedicated recruiter to, and they're trying to go find that person in the market that they're in, as opposed to some recruiters will have, like you said, like a database of people, and then they just try to shove them into a position. And so we're really farming for the right fit for that individual position, as opposed to just trying to get somebody in our inventory to a quick hire.
Okay. So what would you say for a business owner, what would you say that they should prioritize, such as like company culture, expectations, onboarding when it comes to hiring? Like what would you say like kind of goes from the top list down?
Well, if you don't have a vision, values, culture, however you want to codify it, if you don't have that and you can't verbalize it, and people in your company that are top performers can't verbalize it, that'd be the number one thing I'd say you need to do. Because again, people leave situations, they typically don't leave the task that they get hired for. They leave people and managers and bad cultures to go find a better place to work.
Right.
So if you don't have that in your business, getting that first, getting that established, who are we? Why are we here? What do we do? What do we care about the most? Getting that done. And then it's not just having that and then setting it off to the side. It's actually living it.
Yeah.
Reminding people of it, talking about it, wearing it, being proud of it. And that's how you make sure you attract people who are going to want to be part of that culture and vision.
Right. Yeah, because there's a lot of companies that like, I don't know, like Starbucks and like, the big companies, what they're all about and that sort of stuff. So I'm pretty sure they would have pretty strong vision, mission, goals, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and they keep people even though they have bad coffee. So
yeah, they don't even pay that much. So
yeah, it's something keeps people there.
I know, right? It's crazy. So I'm actually really curious about this one. So what do you think, what does it really take to be a recruiter? Like, what is it that people don't see behind the scenes that you guys do to do the job that you do?
I think, well, from how we do it is separating trying to get clients from trying to interview and work with candidates. A lot of recruiters will try to do both. They try to go land the client and then fill the position. So I think way I look at it for us, it's separating those two apart and really having someone who's dedicated to the recruiting for that position. So behind the scenes, an individual's got to be really almost kind of like to be a treasure hunter, right? They're digital mining of resumes and of an ability to read through a resume and quickly see that if they potentially have a fit for the position. Right. And then working on your message to get that person interested in applying, right? In the kind of a digital space of, we're not able to cold call these individuals a lot of times because there's no numbers. All that's kind of secret sometimes. So it's that ability to do that and a willingness to sit there and kind of mine for people. But not just someone who is okay with that. They need to really care about people and finding a good fit.
And it's also building a relationship with each interviewee and all that sort of stuff, which people don't know and don't see. Like, it's a process. It's not just like a one phone call or a one conversation.
Yeah. And I think also behind the scenes is an ability to actually sell. As a recruiter, you're not just finding out if this person's background and what they are as far as skill sets, but being able to build rapport with them as like a salesperson would do, finding out what their needs are for this next position, and being able to cross-sell the opportunity that you're working if it fits those needs and talk about it. And then being very direct with people of like, you have a lot of great aptitude in your resume, but our position is just not a fit for you right now based upon your needs, right? And being okay with telling people no and not just taking people through the interview to just get people through an interview, and being able to hit like an interview number, willing to shut people off early in the process.
Right. And knowing obviously when to do that too, so to save you time.
Yeah. And then the other thing behind the scenes is they need to be very good at closing to the next step. And that's why we talk about a lot of sales situation. It's after this interview, scheduling the next interview, not saying, oh, we'll get back to you. And like, especially in this market right now, like when you have the phone interview, if you like the person and you want to keep them through the process and asking them if they want to stay through the process, setting up next steps, always setting up next steps.
Right.
Because you basically got to handhold the person and the client.
Right. Because you guys are the middle guy, right? And you're trying to deal with both, and you're negotiating for both on top of everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's also keeping them excited, because like they might have another recruiter pitching something else to them. And so, sometimes even though the other job might offer them more money or something that might sound better, the way you can pitch it, maybe like company culture is like, hey, I know, but you can grow in this company. So it's obviously keeping them, you're dealing with competition as well as being the middle guy and everything else. So
yeah, and if you ghost them as an employer, if you don't have enough time to stay on top of them as you're interviewing and setting that next step, and if you do say, hey, I'll get back to you in 2 days, and 2 days turns into 3 and 4 because you're too busy, they may be like, all right, well, I guess he didn't like me or she didn't like me, and they take the other position even though it's not their top pick. Yeah.
Oh, that's well, okay, so I thought we'd finish the interview today with, what have you learned as a recruiter? What is the biggest thing that you're taking away from this job?
Well, I guess my main focus has been on the business side, working with business owners, and just the biggest thing I've understood is that, reminded me when I owned my own business, it's stressful to hire people.
Right.
And to have someone along with you to kind of help you go through all the steps and the issues and finding a good candidate is what I get the most joy out of, working with business owners to help them solve that need that they have. Talking to candidates that I have, sometimes the biggest thing I've learned is that if things are complicated as far as like the job description, or especially with salespeople, if the pay situation is like complicated and overly difficult to explain, you start to lose people. We see job descriptions that are 3 pages long, and it's like you just need to have 1 page, so
simple to the point.
Yeah. And then fill it all in during the interview process. But that's one of the things too, learning is your messaging, tweaking the messaging. If you're not getting, it's just like marketing. It's 100%. You're marketing this position to someone, and if you're not getting the responses that you want, you would tweak your sales marketing in a heartbeat, right? If you're not getting enough leads or whatever. And so I see a lot of companies who just post what they already have done, and they don't really they wonder why they're not getting any applicants, and then they don't analyze what their message is with regards to that. So that's another big learning aspect, is you're selling when you're trying to recruit.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, very interesting stuff. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and everything. And I'm sure hopefully the audience will get a lot of information out of that. And have a wonderful day.
All right. Thanks, Jacqueline.
Thanks.
All right. Go hire people.
Yes, I will.
Bye.
You too.
Okay.
Bye.